We are here on a Marketing Wednesday. Jess and Andy bringing you the latest and greatest. And Jess, it is good to have another guest in seat. Last week we gave you the best marketing advice ever. And then we get to this week and we have Katy Perry landing in space and coming back down. So we got a lot to unpack, but we're going to save that for the end. How are you doing on this Marketing Wednesday?
I do love that you're calling it Marketing Wednesday. I mean, I guess every day is a marketing day in
It
in
is.
in our world and Andy's world.
I feel like this is the peak though. Do you ever have like peaks and valleys to your like weekdays? Like for the most part, at least in my current format, most meetings or big meetings tend to be in the Monday, Wednesday time frame. Occasionally we'll do some end of the weeks, but it's like I almost spend Thursday and Friday getting ready for Monday to Wednesday. And it's like when I conclude today, like I concluded all the big things I needed to do that had to happen this week, and now I'm prepping for next week. And if I can stay in that ideal mindset, I tend to stay a lot more creative.
I love it. I would say I'm more of a Thursday and Friday TGIF from a marketing standpoint. I actually love the big push on Friday because it
Yeah.
makes
You know,
going into the weekend that much sweeter.
feel like you accomplished something right at the end.
Totally.
Friday's my more like I was supposed to watch videos or do a training or something like that. That's how I enter the weekend on my Fridays. I don't know, maybe I need to invert it. So that's usually when my brain's that I'm actually probably the least creative on Fridays. That's why I like to do like the remedial or like check the boxes type tasks.
This is why our discussions work. We're
Yes.
different.
I know, but that's why creativity and why we do this podcast comes in many different ways. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. So we are welcoming our guest today, Dustin Artz. He is the co-creator of Familiar Creatures. And Dustin is someone who specializes in the art, the creative realm, working up from this space to co-creating his own agency and leading what we're calling, or he is calling, challenger branding, which I'm really excited to learn more about today. So, Dustin, welcome to the show. And if you are watching the video feed, we got to give Dustin the award for one of the best branded backdrops that
Mm,
we've seen so far on the podcast. So, we're excited to have you on today.
awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, Dukes is one of our beloved clients that we get to work for every day. So the brand love is real there. It's not just a fake product placement. I'm not
And
getting paid for it.
and Duke's was one that I actually, so when I was a kid, I was like the person that like the fake mayonnaise, like the Miracle Whip. Duke's was
Yeah.
actually, I know the brand very well because it was the first one I started putting on my sandwiches that was
Yep.
non-fake when I was a kid. So I don't know what Duke's did to get me to do that, but that was the brand I went with when I started.
Yeah. Well, good for you. Yeah. Miracle Whip, they're not doing so hot. I think they're aging out,
Yeah,
honestly. So,
you made the
but
right
yeah,
choice.
yeah, Dukes is a good one to love. Usually households have like a Dukes person and a Hellman's person, and they fight it out
The
to
Clash. Yeah.
supremacy. Yeah.
So let's like kick right into it. So obviously we're talking a lot of creative, artistic ability, like bringing ideas to the table, and that fits right in to our theme for season 3 of The Making of a Marketer. And it's about selling ideas. One of the, I think, hardest concepts 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and today. No matter how much our industry changes, ideas and selling ideas still are a huge part of being able to launch any type of initiative. So take me through your brain, Dustin, when it comes to selling ideas in a marketing room where you're at now, or maybe even in your past. What is your method to the madness of getting through something that could be new, hard, difficult, nuances to the everyday? Like, what is your magic to this?
Oh, it's such a great question that I think younger creatives don't really think about. I went to Brand Center, VCU Brand Center, and as a young creative, I think you're always like, how did they come up with that? How did they make that idea? But then some at some point in your creative journey, you're like, oh, selling it is the hard thing. And I honestly wish there were more case studies on how they got stuff made, because rarely when I see an awesome idea and I'm like, how did they come up with it? It's more like, how did they get that through? And it is an art. Um, I will say that if you're making ideas as a creative, you have probably a really good ability to be visual and to see just how a couple words on a page could be very powerful. And you have to kind of realize that the other people who are buying the idea don't have that. So my advice would always be to bring it to life as easily as possible, for those people that don't have that visual mindset. So for me, that usually means, instead of just an idea of keyframe and like a paragraph or whatever, you are going through the who, what, when, where, why, how something uh, can come to life. I think the hardest ideas to sell are ones that haven't been done before, but that's what makes them good, right? Because if you could just say, oh, it's like this thing that was already successful, it's not going to be that fresh anymore. So I think you want to bring the idea to life in a way that makes someone see it and feels like reality, as opposed to just like, I don't know, this is scaring me, so I'm just going to kill it. Hopefully that made sense. Did that make sense? Maybe I should give an example.
Well, it definitely did. On that note, I'd love to know, because you've made this observation around the creatives that are first starting out. So, and this idea of thinking about selling the idea through, or pushing it through. So what would you tell these new creatives on how to change that mindset?
I think that's a big part of what a creative director does. Honestly, I think um, it's interesting. We have younger creatives here, and they are trying to get across what they love about an idea. Like, oh, this. So here's an example. A recent commercial we did where it's like, oh no, but we love this because the sound this character makes is blah blah blah, and people are gonna love that. Whereas in a meeting, you're like, and that's in an internal meeting, I'll say, okay, the person who's buying this doesn't really know how to judge that weird sound that character's making. Maybe we connect this back to the brand somehow by saying he's so crazy about this brand because it does X, Y, and Z that he makes it, like you make it a selling thing as opposed to some random arbitrary creative whim of inspiration, which is great and leads to the best work, but you have to learn how to maybe reverse engineer some of the brilliant ideas and why they're working, and put it in language that someone can understand on the other side.
So, Dustin, let's take a step back into now looking at your role now. You just talking about working with marketers at your agency. Tell us about your marketing journey from now, or from your beginnings all the way to now, to starting this up in 2018. How did everything come about in your journey?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I'm going to try and make it short because these can get so lengthy. But essentially, I went to a business school at the University of Virginia, and I had the left brain of like a business student, but I just wasn't creatively fulfilled. I found an advertising class, and then it made me really curious. I found out there was the VCU Brand Center. It was called Ad Center at the time, and I basically just did a whole life pivot, quarter life pivot, where I thought I was going to be a consulting realm, and I was just like, no, the creative right side, right brain stuff is so more. I just was so much more emotionally invested in it. There was just more highs and more lows, and it just was so fun that I was like, I'm going to go this direction. I, admin at a local ad agency to make sure I liked it. It was Arnold actually in McLean. And then, went to ad school, and they set you up to kind of have the rigor of coming up with ideas. And I worked at a lot of the big shops, McKinney, Team One, Chiat Day in Los Angeles, the Martin Agency in Richmond. And then at a certain point, I wanted to, just see what else I could do. So I started freelancing because I thought maybe I had the work-life balance with having kids. And at that moment, my brother, I have a brother who has a little design shop in Charlottesville. He was doing, he was drawing the packages for a beer that was acquired by Anheuser-Busch. And they made him triple bid it to like keep the business. And so he was like, "Hey, can you help me out?" And I put together a freelance team and went up against a few big agencies and won. And then since then, that gave me the confidence to do some of that work and then figure out the kind of clients I want to work with, challenger brands. And I brought my partner on. And from there, it's been 6 years since then. And it's been a very build the plane as you're flying it sort of thing. It wasn't I'm going to take a step back and make an agency. It was sort of baby steps, and every step along the way, just getting smarter and figuring out how to make an agency in, it started 2 years before COVID hit. So, yeah, so that's hopefully short enough. But hopefully that explains enough too.
No, and I find that fascinating. Jess, you and I have had multiple people that have co-founded different agencies, and I like to ask this question on purpose, Dustin, because for our listeners, there might be some people that are like, "Hey, I want to be a little bit more creative. I want to do these things," and they may not immediately have the natural background for it. So, like when
Yeah.
I talk to a lot of, in my world, early on social media managers is what my background is from a marketing perspective. A lot of times they're switching things up and they don't even like really know like where they can go. So I think the more stories they hear about this and how you change things up, how you got here, like, and that you're also still learning, which we're going to get into a lot today. I think are important topics, even though we talk about them multiple times in a multitude of different ways, Jess. I think they're important to have the velocity that we feature on this program.
Totally. I also love how you found your through line during the journey. It sounds like because you were put in a challenger brand position, like
Mm-hmm.
you found that niche, and I love how you've expanded on that.
Yeah. Well, two things there. The first thing, Andy, what you said about learning, I think you have to, anyone who's looking to start something new, you have to be a curious person. You have to want to learn and you have to have a growth mindset because you're going to be really bad at things you've never done, and so for me, starting a company was like, I've never done QuickBooks before and I'm got to figure it out because there's nobody else, like, and that's so mundane and menial, but it's like a big part of tracking things. And so like figuring that out and not just being scared of it or being like, I'm not the person who does that. I think you have to embrace a very growth mindset. Like I'm going to get better at all these things. And then Jess, shoot, I forgot the point you just made. Oh, the challenger brand thing. That throughout my career, working at the big places, you're working on all these household names, and a lot of the brand strategy and architecture is defined already. And your job as a creative is, especially at the big places that are like the AOR roles, is you make a platform or a campaign and then you write the TV and then they segment out all the other work because they're just so huge that they have all these different agencies. And I liked the smaller brands, like the Sabras or the just smaller brands, that Mentos, that didn't have a huge marketing team and all these different agencies, because you could really help define the spirit of the brand and the point of view on the world that they have. And I just found that when you believe in the brands you're working on, you do so much better work because you want it to succeed, as opposed to like, oh, I just want to make something cool for my book, get hired, and then who cares if it works in the marketplace. I think circling back to something, Andy, you said about selling, I think a lot of creatives, if they're being honest, when they're starting on a creative journey, they don't want to sell anything. They just want to make cool ideas, and they feel weird about the idea of being a salesman because it's like it feels beneath them or something. But the problem is it isn't a world where you just make something great and people find it. Like you have to be able to sell it. You have to be able to market it. And there's plenty of examples of superior ideas and products failing because they weren't supported or sold correctly. So um yeah, hopefully that wraps that up.
So definitely take us through, Dustin, the challenger brand aspect. Like what does that, and for our audience, explain what that means to you, kind of how you approach that at Familiar Creatures, and maybe like as you explain a little bit, and maybe how that's different than like, we'll say like Coca-Cola or something
Yeah.
like that.
Well, so the technical definition would be that a challenger brand isn't the market leader. Um, Market leaders have something called a double jeopardy law, where people not only do they have the most buyers, but they have the highest loyalty as well, and that's like across categories. So a challenger brand would be like, how do you overcome that? And you just have to be a little more smart. You have to be a little more bring emotion into it, because the leader is going to eat your lunch if you do the same things that they do. So you have to think differently. That said, I don't like that definition because we have most of our brands are challenger brands, but we also have Bubba Burgers as a client, and they're the number one frozen burger. And we adopt a challenger brand mindset for them, which is don't be all things for all people. Um, when you try to make marketing for the lowest common denominator, meaning like, oh, it's if you're old, if you're young, if you're cool, or if you're not, or you're a woman, or you're a man, or anything, it's for you, it's for all of you. It's like you don't have any brand beliefs that anyone can latch onto or care about. So I think it's having a distinct point of view on the world, where you're really thinking about who are the leaders in this category, what are they doing that I can either subvert or challenge in a way that will get people emotionally to pay attention to me.
We love this, Dustin. This is exactly what we talked about last week in one of our best pieces of advice that we have ever received. So yes, thank you for that. We talk extensively about not trying to please or
Yeah,
make everyone happy.
it's scary for the client side, because we have brand workshops with all new clients, trying to get to the strategy really quickly. And there's an axis that we do where it's like, are you elite or are you accessible? And that's just like a personality, like like a liquor brand could be more elite. But a lot of times there's a hang up because it's like, well, I want to sell as much as possible, so accessible. It's like, well, that's not what we're saying. We're like, of course you want to sell, but it's like, who are you marketing to? Like, who are you speaking to? Um, and it's just like an influencer or something. When you have a little bullseye that you're speaking to, other people kind of are like, hey, what's going on over there? I want to check that out, as opposed to just like spraying everyone with like, buy this because it's good for everyone.
No, my version of that has been when people or brands are marketing with price points.
Yeah.
And I always ask, are you the cheapest price point? Because you're like coming in with that and saying how much things cost. Like, Andy, I actually know we're like the second most expensive. And I was like, price point would not be in my marketing. That's not your selling point. It's like,
Yep.
is your product the best? Can
Yeah.
you like now like we have to break things down a little bit with our brands. Like, is your product undeniably the best more times than not? Well, we're like lacking in this and that. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, cool, then we can't be saying our product is the best. Like, authenticity becomes so important for our
Yep.
clients. And that's the conversation for me, Dustin, that now opens up in the workshop. All right, what is our brand? Could it be
Yeah.
what our
Totally.
brand stands for? Could it be like how the parts are made? Could it be like What ingredients are used? Could it, like all these things we have to start asking. And then like at some point, do we get to something that's like, oh yeah, that's something that nobody else does besides us. And then I circle that. And I'm like, let's start here.
Yeah, that's great. I always say like, yeah, if you're saying you're the cheapest, then the next person who's the cheapest and you have no other brand aspects to go with it, there's like you're just going to be left in the dust, if all you're doing is price. Even if you are advertising on price though, you have to find a way to make it emotional. So like being a democratizer, that's like a challenger brand archetype, like Southwest. They are cheap, but instead of saying, yeah, we're the cheapest, it's like, no, we are doing this because we believe everyone deserves a chance to fly. And we are allowing all these stories happen. And that's just so much more compelling than just saying, hey, we're the cheapest.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about that if I'm thinking like more discount airlines. I think about Spirit Airlines
Oh,
marketing
God. Yeah.
versus Southwest. Like it's a
Yeah.
completely different story.
Yeah. Spirit, you're like, are we going to land? No, I shouldn't say that.
What are the extra fees going to be? All right, let's talk now. Crunch Fitness, Duke's Mayo, some of your larger initiatives. You talk about Bubba Burgers. How take us through excelling these brands to new heights. So we just talked about a little bit of these examples, but what are you doing now with them on the day to day? So it's increasing their sales, but also with the creative element that you're bringing to the table at Familiar Creatures.
Yeah, we love both of those brands. They're two of our biggest brands here and our longest relationships. Both of the strategies are different, and everything is kind of bespoke as it should be to what is the category, what is the history of these brands. So there's never a templated approach to challenger brands. So for Dukes, their number one in their field is Hellman's, and Hellman's is just massive compared to Dukes. Like in a pie chart, it would be a third of the pie chart, and Dukes is like a fraction, right? So what we do there is we developed a challenger, like I just mentioned, a democratizer. That's a challenger brand archetype. Dukes, we after a brand workshop, we determined they were a feisty underdog, and what that does, it's like Pepsi to Coke. You're trying to reduce the playing field to two and kind of poke the bear. And so a lot of our strategy with Dukes is being a feisty firebrand from the South. Hellman's is we view as like this kind of bland, ubiquitous, top down. It's blue. Every Mayo is like blue label, which is safe. And so we just try, as opposed to doing a top down, like big Super Bowl spot and then make every little banner look like the Super Bowl with a purpose driven message that was given by Unilever. We have it more, there's a unified strategy, but we do a ton of little activations that provoke fandom and get people to really turn their heads and look at this new and up and comer. So that's sort of an overall thing for Dukes that we do. They have grown double digits in terms of unit sales the 3 years we've been working with them. Hellman's has grown 1%, which is still decent since they're huge. But then Miracle Whip, which you talked about, they're tanking, and Kraft is losing a lot. So Dukes is the fastest growing Mayo in the universe as far as we know. So they're killing it. And we're lucky that we've played a part in that. And then Crunch, they have sort of a different, almost a 180 thing where Crunch is franchise owned. And they had a lot of different messaging. So they said they were no judgments, but Planet Fitness also has a judgment free zone. Crunch also had like a making serious fitness fun. They had all these messages, and then all of their advertising across the country with the franchises just felt so fragmented that we thought they needed more of a bullseye. So we went through positioning to really get to a fruitful area, which was everyone deserves to feel good. And it captured some of like the mindfulness and feel good benefits that the competition was lacking in terms of like bulking up and looking awesome and or just being like eating pizza. Like, so we, we identified that, and then we've just been positioning 101, keep saying it, keep hammering it. So I think those are our broad overarching strategies for those. And then Crunch at the same time, they've had the best performance they've had in years, most leads per club per day. They're growing like crazy. And they went from with us number 7 in unaided awareness to number 2. So they've become number 2 behind Planet in the time we've been with them. So 2 different strategies, but yeah, we're just very lucky to work with those brands, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes to just make what feels effortless as advertising.
I love both of these strategies. Congratulations. It's absolutely fantastic to hear and absolutely applies to the B2B space. With both, we talk about this a lot as well. With Dukes, this idea of, swimming downstream while Hellman's is swimming upstream. So, doing the contrarian
Mm-hmm.
thing is so effective and something we want to see B2B brands do more of. And then with Crunch, love that you're really trying to get into the customer's emotional benefits and focusing on the feelings, because
Yeah.
something we talk a lot about in B2B is you gotta be a human. It's like
Yeah.
be a human. It's more about getting into like the feeling space, being more emotive, and you're gonna be more effective.
Yeah. Dukes has a strong B2B part of the brand because they have a away from home. They sell in retail, but they also go on lots of sandwiches and things and at kiosks and gas stations and restaurants. And so they're loved by chefs, and that's a lot of what we do for the overarching brand, we make sure works in that space and is playing to what makes sense for that audience. Yeah, I don't like when a B2B is treated like there's some alien that isn't humans and doesn't respond to emotional decision making, which we all do, obviously.
And I just love that for our listeners, this is kind of, I would say that if you're a marketer, there aren't many of our marketers that probably have marketed mayonnaise before. Well, they probably have been in like the CPG realm and whatnot. I think maybe the e-commerce realm, B2B, of course, we're talking about, but there's so many different layers to marketing. I think it's, for me, like really fascinating to hear your brain work, Dustin, on how you differentiate these 2 different types of companies, but yet coming back to a singular thread. Because if there's one thing that I've tried to fight, both with this podcast, my personal life, and my career, is that there's this belief that exists with marketers that you need to have X amount of experience in this marketing vertical and X amount of experience,
Yeah,
marketing this size of brand or this size of budget. But the creative people in the room that make it work for one brand and can turn one thing into an award-winning concept or just a really good concept, likely will do it for your other vertical too, if you're willing to teach and learn. And that's
I
the
would.
key thing.
I love that so much. There are so many pieces of business that we came in second to getting because they're like, you just don't have experience in the vertical. And it's things that, for me, a big trick creatively is like, say, higher ed, for instance. We have higher ed experience, but we don't try to mimic the higher ed marketing because it's usually pretty bland and terrible. We borrow from other verticals, and then it's like, whoa, how did you think to do that? It's like Liquid Death. They are borrowing from like Mountain Dew or Adventure, like what's it,
Red
energy
Bull.
drink advertising. And it's like, how are they doing it? It's like, because we didn't borrow the water like expertise. We borrowed from somewhere else. So I think I completely agree. I just think that it's usually people that just don't want to tell their boss they hired someone who didn't have vertical experience because they don't want to get fired
Yep.
if it
No, that
goes
makes
wrong.
sense. I mean, it's a lot of just going with what you know. And
Yeah.
that's what I think Justin and I really try to combat against.
Yeah.
So let's talk now, Dustin, about you as a marketer and
Mm.
starting an agency. So let's talk about this through a whole other lens, positioning familiar creatures. You just talked about that a little bit in pitching clients, of course. But now let's take it back to 2018 to today. There's got to be a
Yep.
brand within a brand. My one of my largest things when I worked at agencies is we would like talk about how we're branding other brands, but a lot of times we didn't talk about how are we branding ourselves in a
Yep.
lens so other brands want to work with us. So take us through a little bit about that marketing lens and how your brain operates there.
Yeah, that's there's an expression, the cobbler's children has no shoes. And I've found a lot of advertising agencies aren't very good at positioning themselves. And I think a lot of it's because, to a large extent, they don't have to. At least the upper funnel ones, so the big agencies, they have their whole new business chain kind of supplied by the media companies and the pitch consultants, and so they have them all lined up. They get invited to all these pitches, but when you start a new place, you don't have that benefit. Um, so the first positioning we did was, we called ourselves a fractional AOR. This was in 2018, 2019. My partner and I just starting, and we looked broad strokes at the marketing of agencies across the board, and we are like, it's always some guy's name, and it's always sort of fight it. It's just like saying the category sell, which is like, if you do upper funnel advertising, you're going to say get noticed, or uh, don't be invisible, or be brave, or, it's just some sort of tagline that's like, get out there, which is like upper funnel. We were like, okay, how do we, you know, spin our like limitations into a strength? So we came up with fractional AOR, which at the time, fractional, there was a rise of fractional CMOs. There was a lot more smaller brands popping up everywhere because of DTC. And we wanted to say, we are not going to like grab a hold of you like an AOR agency does and just bilk you for hours and hours of money. We are going to come in, be a partner, um, that isn't trying to take all the credit for themselves, and then leave in 4 months if you need, or leave in 6 months if you need. So there was this fractional concept it was decent. It was too rational, in retrospect, but it resonated with a lot of the mindset of marketers who quickly wanted to know, what do you do? Oh, you're fractional. I need something like that. I'm understaffed in my marketing team. And it put us on a sort of advocate, or partner side, as opposed to, oh, that big agency's coming in and telling me what to do and taking all my money, which is sort of how they're looked at sometimes. We shifted because we kind of outgrew that position, and now we outsmart brand behemoths because we wanted to use the familiar creatures language. And so we call the big guys the behemoths, and we say outsmart. And so that's sort of our tagline, but it's really going against the big guys like we do with Dukes and Crunch. And to a lesser extent, because we just won Pabst Light, but is what we're going to try and do with them as well. And so what that does is, you don't have to, again, be everything to everyone. We are saying, we want to help you go against the big guys. And we are structured for that approach. And because we have that laser focus, even when you're a number one like Bubba Burger, you're like, I like that. As opposed to a lot of the big agencies are like, we'll do anything. We'll do healthcare. We'll do soda. We'll do beer. We'll do anything, and it's not appealing because it doesn't really say, what are you best at? And so that's how we kind of determine that. But to get there, we had like an external consultant. We had people come in. It took a lot to find like the effortless sort of idea and set of words.
I absolutely love it. And the name sparks my curiosity. So tell me more about the familiar creatures language.
Okay. The the dirty secret is that was, we looked at hundreds and hundreds of names and we wanted to be approachable and not too cool for school. We saw a lot of agencies that were like, we thought a lot of the bad rap with agencies when um, they try to act like we're brilliant and just listen to us. And so we wanted to be approachable. So that was where we started. Um, but we've come to define familiar creatures as we are familiar with the big guys and the big agencies and how they operate and the big brands and how they operate. But we like to think of ourselves as a crafty band of creatures that can run circles around them with way less resources. So that's what we say the name means, but I don't think we had that exact articulation when we came up with it. It was really just my partner Justin and I shooting names back and forth until we were like, ooh, that's good. Because we wanted something that we could make merch for, that you could be like, oh, that's a cool brand. I love those guys. Whereas most places, they're not thinking like that. They're not showing off their brand capability.
So one key thing you hit on, Dustin, is starting us 2 years before COVID. So take us now through the agency world on your side, because I worked through this. The story that I will tell over and over again is it all worked out for the best for me, but I moved to Pittsburgh for a job in the agency space right as COVID hit. And what we were left with once we got into 2021 and so on was mergers, departments downsizes, departments being diminished, changes. Like it was basically there was a COVID era, and then there was an era right after where there was just a ton of changes in the overall industry. So curious, like how you approached that, how Familiar Creatures came out on top through that. Like was there a way that kept you going to where you're at now?
It actually counterintuitively probably helped us because a really reductive way to look at us was, oh, they have the big agency experience, but they're smaller and they won't cost as much. So I do think um, if you're trying to make smart decisions as a marketer during those years when your budgets are slashed, you're trying to hang with less. And so I do think it helped us. I will say though that um, when we started, obviously COVID wasn't in the picture. We were working with Devil's Backbone at first, and then we realized we got to be bigger than beer. And what united us, it was our love for challenger brands, Justin and I. So I think Carlots was our second client. We had like a few clients before COVID hit, maybe 3 to 5. Um, but then when it hit, it was crickets. And what we ended up doing was um, we did a nonprofit sort of thing, advertising campaign for all of the restaurants in Richmond. So we were just like, what if we could just help out? And this was us just being like, we had free time, so we're like, what's something we could advertise and just help the city? And we came up with something called Keep Calm and Nom Nom, and it was like just an aggregator of all of the to go pages for all of the restaurants in the area to just like drive people there, and then it's like a click link to this area and you go and buy a gift card, and it was your way to like help them and get quickly to find food for yourself. And because of that, the restaurant community sort of found out about us, and that helped us win Dukes a little later because the restaurant community already like knew of Familiar Creatures because we helped them out during COVID. So I would say like one, just like keeping calm, and then two, like doing proactive things like that. We also did something with, we were like, let's buy teachers on teacher day a bunch of like little plants, and like we did all these like scrappy things to use our brains creatively that when we didn't have real work at the time. But then I also, like I said, I think we benefited because we were a lower, let's not say lower price, but just a better value for the time. And coming out of COVID, um, we pretty much tripled right after it. in terms of billings, and we've kept going up. But I think it was just keeping calm and keeping ourselves occupied without freaking out.
Oh, that makes sense. It was just so interesting during those times, and it makes sense as companies are slashing their budgets, trying to stay aboard. That they had to find someone to go to, and we used to say at agencies like, if you turn everything off and go dark, and then you try to wake up in a year later, there's going to
Oh,
be a
it's
lot of things that happened in
yeah,
between.
it's also counterintuitive, but when everyone is pulling back, you should you should spend more because your money goes further. So for the
Mhm.
brave ones that do it, and then I've heard this analogy and I forget where I heard it, but it's like marketing is like watering your lawn, and you can't just turn it off like for 2 years and then turn it on and expect it to be green. It's like, no, that shit's all dead. You're gonna have to
Yeah,
regrow it from start.
yeah, it's horrible. Yeah. Yeah,
Sorry for
it's like my next door neighbors who are cutting their yards when there's frost on it. I'm like, that's not gonna end well. Like once it freezes and it's short, that's not gonna look good. You're gonna be watering a lot.
it's funny.
But I know we're closing in on time here, so I want to just close with this one, Dustin. Just anything you can leave us with in the 2025 world of creative, video techniques, influencers, TikToks, the vertical video landscape, changing algorithms. There's so much that can just flood your feed right now when it comes to
Mm.
marketers, and really a changing landscape that I think we see across all channels as people try to be more authentic and relate in this AI era, if you will. So, how does someone with your creative sense and in your team stay on top of everything that's changing and stay focused on what is to be done?
Yeah, I think it's you said it at the end there in this AI world. I've I use ChatGPT all day, every day myself to get to move quickly past the stuff that is tedious and time consuming for me and my business, so I can focus on the creative and do what humans do best, which is creating stories that appeal to other humans. But so, for instance, people at work call ChatGPT my girlfriend, but like I will be like, we are a top tier agency that does X, Y, and Z. We have been tasked with a new client that is part of a legacy brand that has a new product offering X, Y, Z. What are some examples in the past that have succeeded and failed, and why? And so, like, that before would have taken weeks. If you're at a big agency, put together this, and people like researching whatever. You can get that instantly and get that out of the way and be like, okay, that. Same with like creative. You can just be like, what are expected? I just make it as a table stakes, get me up to speed really quickly so that I can spend my time doing things that only I can do or we can do, which is make creative, compelling, really smart work. So I view it as a time saver. Is that the question, or are you asking what channels to
No,
focus on?
I think I like that idea because it's just like I think people, there's so much being thrown at them right now, they're almost frozen. Like,
Yeah,
and
no,
I've
this,
seen that in a lot of creative rooms that I workshop with right now. And I'm
yeah,
always saying that I'm going to throw 10 ideas at you. I want you to take one. Like, I want you to
yeah,
leave here with one that you like, and then, we can move on that. But I think there's just a lot of noise that hits the creative rooms, and
yeah,
people freeze. So, like the way you're thinking about AI and how that works in your day to day, I think that's a
yeah.
good takeaway for us.
I also think for me, or for the brands we have at least, there's like a certain DNA or um, view of how that brand behaves, and so usually in the very beginning we're laying down how does this brand operate in the world, what is its point of view, what is its voice, and so the creative comes from there. But I could imagine if you're just trying to come up with ideas in a vacuum, it's like, man, there's so much of everything, it's overwhelming and people don't care and there's too many there's just too much. information paralysis, right? So I'd always go back to what is the brand's emotional truth, and how do we say that in a way that the competitors in the space aren't doing it, you know, just to help. Whenever you have too big a sandbox, it's too scary. It's whenever we give briefs that are like, it can be anything, it works against you. So you have to make a tiny little sandbox that you can do a million ways. So I would get the brief a lot smaller, probably.
Well, there you have it, Dustin Artz. Familiar creatures. Be sure to give you a follow on LinkedIn. Also, give their website a look. Very cool website. I was just peeking at before the podcast today with some good case studies on Duke's Crunch, and the rest of it. But Dustin, this was a fabulous creative conversation. There's a lot we could take away, and I am going to be looking at Duke's in a whole other way now. Following this conversation, looking for some of these clever branding tactics. So thank you for lending your learnings today, and we look forward to seeing the growth here in the future.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Dustin. Yeah, I think we could talk all day with some club sandwiches with Dukes on it. It was great, this conversation.
Thank you guys.
Thank you for being here. So just to recap that conversation today, again, it's like something so cool to talk about different types of brands and their marketing that we don't always think about. So yeah, I really, really liked like talking it through. Mayonnaise, fitness. Like the Crunch Fitness example was actually like fascinating to me in the metaverse because at a previous stop, I did not work on Planet Fitness, but I was with the agency that had Planet Fitness. So I was very familiar with the Planet Fitness case study and why they marketed a certain direction. So to hear Dustin's thought process of how like it's a little bit like it in Crunch Fitness, but different, I was like, okay, like it just like it's kind of cool to see it come together. But really cool just creatively how he's thinking about things.
Totally. And what I love about Crunch as well is it really is just getting back to the basics. These are simple human beliefs, motivations, feelings, values. So yes,
Mhm.
people want to feel good. That's
Yeah.
very simple and very clear and something that would resonate with many people.
Yes, absolutely. Back to basics. Why are you going to the gym? And you don't have to be everything for everyone. I think that's like the common thread that you and I just keep hitting on. That, I deal with this with very large brands a lot of times. Andy, why am I getting negative comments on our posts? And I look at the post and there's 183 comments and they have four that are negative. And I was like, you will never be everything to everyone. And if you are upset because one person disagrees with your brand, then you end up going into those safe brands that nobody talks about that just exist on the back shelf. And that's what we don't want to be.
And the other thing that I loved, Dustin talking about multiple times, and another through line is the idea of being interested versus interesting. We
Yeah.
talk about this so much, not focusing on, oh, I really want to have a cool idea. I want to be the cool brand. It's
Yeah.
actually being interested in your customers and again, what they believe, what they feel, and aligning those beliefs to the brand and the brand value and the brand personality and the brand beliefs. Other thing too is Dustin talking about like having that belief in the brand and making you more of an effective marketer. I thought that was again very simple. It's like one again those like basic principles, but I don't think we see that across the board in the industry.
No, we're talking about kind of the authenticity and being, a brand that means something to your customer. And I think we've been hitting on this a lot lately. So I gotta bring it right to it.
I knew you were going to
Yes,
segue to this. It did tie
yes.
back together. We did a full circle.
We did a full circle. What is it? A full rotation around the Earth, a revolution around the Earth. So, bringing this all together, Jess, I need your opinion before we like get really into it. So, Katy Perry and Space Story is dominating our feeds right now, and You and I have been somewhat critical about celebrities and their usage of brand and sometimes not like really like looking at the customer or the perception of their brand. So we'll get right into it. Katy Perry's space. Good move, bad move, or people getting too crazy about it? Like how do you feel about this story right now?
Oh, Andy, you can guess.
Yeah.
This was an epic fail. I will say though,
Oh yeah.
they are the unifier
Yeah.
because the majority, no, regardless of your political affiliation, I mean, I've seen feminists come out, your beliefs are all coming together in identifying that this was
A
so
miss.
bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it was yeah, like this is one of those t times where we can jest in the irrelevance. It
Yeah.
was, yes.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed. I mean, I don't even know what is happening. And the more
Yeah.
I keep hearing about it, it is such a knock on real astronauts. Like, how about the real female astronaut that was
Yeah. And the
just
huge
stuck in
breakthroughs.
space?
Like if you
Yes.
go to the history of that, the first female astronauts was a huge breakthrough because historically that was a male-dominated field. So when they had those historic moments that they went up there, and went to the International Space Station and led to many of the discoveries that we have today, they're monumental figures in history. Like Sally Ride is a really, really big one in the space. So like it's almost felt like Katy Perry was trying to insert herself into this, and it was like the biggest miss possible because what was up there for 10 minutes.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. It was actually 11, and
11.
Wendy's
Sorry.
also did point that out as well. It was not 10, it was 11.
It
And
was 11.
I've been reading so many comments. I mean, you would love this one, Andy, around how this is just a glorified, leaving a massive carbon footprint, Six Flags ride. Or, going to an amusement park. Like they are not a crew, they are not astronauts, they did not go on a space mission.
No.
They are tourists going on
Yeah.
a ride. Like,
Yeah.
let's just be real.
And so like here's the thing with it. Like so this is like where I'm gonna like give my like middle ground a little bit statement. Like, look, if Jeff Bezos, Blue Origin, like if they want to do like their rich person thing, like I don't care how pe rich people spend their money that much. It's their money, they can spend it however they want. However, the marketing they do afterwards and how they present these types of things, this is where if you're in like a marketing room, which Katy Perry's going to have marketing people, you need to be talking about how this is perceived. Like, eliminate what she thinks, the customer, the viewer, the person on the other side. Like, you can do whatever you want. Like, I'm not going to sit here and lose sleep over how rich people spend money. But if you put it out there and try to act like you're a space explorer right afterwards, you have to know the perception of this. You have to realize the perception of who you're marketing and how things are going to be reacted to. And that, I don't know, again, I don't know her team. Maybe her team wasn't involved at all when she rage tweeted this, but it just didn't come off very well with her posting about it and how she did it.
And what's unbelievable is the delusion. They all literally believe that they have changed mankind with this space ride or
Yeah.
the space amusement ride. It's I, and I think that's where you're right. They have no connection to
Mhm.
the end user, which is why what Wendy's did
Yeah.
was relevant and so on point and really just bringing us all together.
Did you see how Kesha got in a conversation now? So Kesha was sipping on a Wendy's cup today in a picture. I was just like, that's a way to enter the convo.
Yes, and there's more to that. There's more drama to that with the person that Katy Perry did an album with recently that Kesha accused
Hmm.
of sexually assaulting her. So that like, there's
Yes.
more.
There's a
There's
connection
definitely
there.
more
It's
to it. But yes, I thought
doctor.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and funny enough, like no joke. My parents are not on social media, so I don't even know how this came about. But yesterday, on a call with them, the girls were talking to Gramsci and Pappy, and I couldn't see the video, but I hear my dad say, "Oh, wait, what kind of frosty did you get me?" And
Yeah.
I'm like screaming out. I go, "Mom, are you at Wendy's?"
Yep.
And I go, "You don't do Wendy's." And she
But now we do.
goes, yeah,
Yeah.
she goes, "Yeah, your dad convinced me to get a Frosty because we haven't had a Frosty in 30 years." And she's
Yeah.
like, "It's really good." So I'm like, "What is
Yep.
this? Like indirect? How did this indirect marketing work?" Because I don't think they saw Wendy's
Yep.
response. I just thought it was a really
It gets
fun
people talking
coincidence.
about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It just,
maybe.
it's
Yeah,
in
maybe they were
conversation.
out. You're
Yeah.
right. Maybe when they were out, they heard someone else talking about Wendy's, and then the brand recall, the mental
Yeah.
availability in my dad's head. My dad sold through the idea to my mom, and there you have it. Frosties after 30 years.
Now, I'm not super close to this story, so like I'm not gonna pretend like I know everything about this Blue Origin debacle, but let's just say if you and I were to rethink this for them, we were like with Jeff Bezos in a room and be like, hey man, let's try something different when you send this flight up. Like, what if the approach was you have a group of people, you send a former astronaut so they can explain kind of like the science and exploration and kind of like how this is like changing the landscape of, when they first started to now. You could have a STEM influencer, science, education, technology influencer that is very macro, that they are the type of influencer that's more about the science, the educational side, like raising awareness, funds, like whatever it is to this type of industry. You could still have Katy Perry as a celebrity that's on board, but now Katy Perry's messaging is about what she learned from these experts on this craft. And then they all go to space together for 11 minutes. And then when she comes back, explains like what the leading advances of science and technology are to be able to lead people to now go on a roller coaster to space. If you have executed that, I'm like, good. Celebrity branding, thought leadership, former astronaut. I'm like, I checked all my boxes. This is the way to do it. Instead, it looks more like Jeff Bezos's, like new like thing to do. It just the brand doesn't come off right. Again, like I'm not gonna if someone wants to spend money to go to space for 11 minutes, I'm not on that train where I'm gonna go criticize them for it. I'm more so the macro brand has to appeal to people.
Absolutely. They could have done behind the scenes. They said that they went through training. Yeah, what training? It's so ridiculous. And again, it's such a slap in the face to the real astronauts, to the real people,
Mhm.
women, men that want to go into a space program, that want to be engineers, that
Yeah,
want to be real astronauts. But yes, you're
yeah,
right. This could have been flipped and approached so differently, and
yeah,
putting it on the real people, and it would have been a different
yeah.
outcome. So
This
like
could be,
uplifting those stories, and like it's the maker story. It's not
yeah.
the Katy Perry how I changed the world story.
Yeah, and it could be celebrities leveraging real people's voices. Like,
Yeah.
because everything's about attention and being seen. When a celebrity speaks to something, there's a lot more attention to it, good, bad, and in between. Use your voice for good. There's a chance, it's an opportunity here. So, yeah, it was a miss, definitely.
Again, like this got more coverage than the female that was just stuck in space for a year
Yep,
coming back home on a successful mission.
yep,
And it's like, again, she could have, why didn't they highlight this person? Yes,
yeah,
huge miss and good for Wendy's. You're,
yeah.
you're,
Wendy's is
you
always on
met the
top.
moment. Yes.
Yep. Now, that's something we talk about. Like Wendy's could be McDonald's, but Wendy's knows what Wendy's is. They like we just talked about budgets on this podcast. They are likely, I don't know their budgets, but they're never going to have the McDonald's budget or footprint. But they don't need to do that. They need to be Wendy's. Like I used to say this with social media platforms when they came into the game. Like it used to be Facebook, like dominated everything, and then TikTok showed up, and I was like, TikTok doesn't need to be Facebook. You can't have the budget of Facebook. You can't have the people of Facebook. And then it became Meta, and you can't have that. But what you can do is do what you do really well and see where that thing will take you over the course of time. It might surprise you, but that's Wendy's. Wendy's chooses to be Wendy's, and that's why their marketing works for them.
Yes, and this can be a learning lesson, the cautionary tale for all the marketers out there that are considering, the thought leadership, using influencers, using celebrities. We're definitely saying, yes, use them. There's still a market for that for sure. Uh, but use them in a way where you're highlighting the
Yeah,
real people
that's who they
behind
care
what you're trying to accomplish. Because I think this again shows how celebrities, like so the celebrity is now turned into the marketing brochure.
about.
People absolutely understand now that they are bought and paid for, and their voice, their influence has diminished big
Yep.
time. Again, people are want the real. They want, I know we say authentic all the time now, but yeah,
Yeah.
this is like the genuine perspective, and they're not
Sure.
getting it from celebrities right now, and people could care less, and they're not listening. So it's like if you're gonna use them, it's still good because you want to bring attention to something that has meaning, to a cause, to a mission, to a vision, but use it in a way where you're putting the focus on the people, the end user, the customer, the people that are going to really find the relevance in what you are doing.
Well said. He couldn't have ended the show any better, Jess. That might be the best. Like, let's just mic drop and get out of here with this one. But this was an excellent, well-rounded episode. Dustin Arts really explaining the art of what he's doing in creative and social, or creative and digital. So definitely give him a follow with Familiar Creatures. And then we got some guests lined up for the next few weeks. So we're excited to keep bringing the marketing madness to the table.
Yes.
Until then, talk to everybody soon. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.